Bismillah. Test, test. Alright, I think we are live, and today we will be talking about marriage. So, just in case anyone is watching, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good greetings. And today we will be talking about marriage. In the two last, or the previous two recording or live stream, this is a live stream, right? Um, we actually have segued towards the issue of marriage, right? When I have mentioned about how I ended up with a great wife, a super lady, super woman, as my partner in life and also in my life mission. And so today we will be talking about marriage, the when, the who, the how, if possible, and if time permits. Um, so yeah, recently, recently we have the event of Eid al-Fitr, or the celebration of Eid al-Fitr. After 1 month of Ramadan, we have completed 1 month of fasting. The Muslim have the celebration of Eid al-Fitr, right, where we basically, in our culture in Malaysia, we go back home to our hometown, see our parents, see our relatives, etc. And one of the repeated question that many face a lot, especially for those who are not married, who are single, bila nak kahwin, right? So even in social media, basically the translation of that question is, when will you get married, right? When will you get married, right? For those who are not yet married. So one of the thing that always pop up in the social media during that Eid, leading towards Eid, and of course after that, um, especially for among the single, they complain, especially, to put in perspective or context, especially for those who, meaning at a certain age where people expect them to already being married and they are not yet married, right? So that question will come a lot to them, especially when they go back to celebrate their festive season with the family, etc. Relatives will come over and, ah, when will you get married, right? That's normally the question, like icebreaker question, but it can be quite sensitive for some, especially those who are not yet married, not because they do not want to, but because of certain things, circumstances, etc., etc., right? So when the question of when becomes a big question, I'm not sure about other culture, is this a norm or not? Maybe you can tell us if you are from a different culture, right? I'm assuming most Muslim countries have quite similar culture in this sense, where at marriage is somewhat expected, if you know what I mean. You are expected to get married at a certain age. Basically, that's the norm, and that's why people ask about it when they see, are you still single? Why? When are you getting married? Right. So that's a common question. So when, right? Um, yeah, that's the norm. So because the implication of this question is, are you getting married early or late? Sometimes there's two things, right? Sometimes people getting question, like the question when people get married in the perspective too early, and then when it's quite late and you are still not married, then there's also some question from people, right? And of course, when we say, okay, personally, I like to relate to myself first before I talk about more generic stuff and more talk about the norm, right? If people ask me, right, normally my answer is not ask me when to get married, because I am already married. But when talk about this topic of when to get married, I always tell people I get married quite late. Right, that's my normal answer. I get married quite late, but late or early is actually a relative term, right? It is relative. You can be considered as arriving late when you arrive at 10:30, or you can be considered as arriving early if you come at 10:50, right? Because if the expectation is different, right? If the time set is 10, you come at 10:30, you are late. If the tentative time is at 11, you come 10:50, it's quite early, right? So even though one is before the other, but this is still late, this is still early, because people expect you differently, right? So I think different culture, different family, different background might have different expectation, and if they expect it at this age, you are already should be married, and you are not married after that, then it is considered as early, right? So I think in different culture, some people getting married before a certain age can be considered as early, uh, or late, because the expectation is different, I think, right? Okay, so when did I get married? When, because some say, okay, you got married late, when is it, right? It was when I was about 25 of age, right? At the age of 25. Some will not consider that as early, actually. No, some will not consider that as late, because I said I got married quite late at 25, right? Many people actually responded to me that says, how is that late, right? Because that's quite early for them, right? So then I realized that it's relative. Why did I feel that that is quite late? Because my expectation before that is around 23, right? You get married at 23, and at the age of leading towards 23, when I go back home for festive season, for example, I already was already being, how to say, it's not mocked, but it's like friendly, playfully, what is the word in English? My vocabulary is not enough to translate every word, but they say, you know, some of my uncle may say, at your age, I already holding the baby, which is my second child. I got married like 3 years ago, right? So because one of my uncle, he got married, I think, at 19, right? My father, my dad get married at 21. So that's my background, right? I come from a family with that background where 21, 19, 23, you are married. That's normal. Of course, we can say also about generation, right? Those generation and our generation. Now, to put in perspective, I'm the oldest among my cousin, right? Meaning that my father is the oldest from his sibling. I'm the oldest from him. So that's why I'm becoming not to say the benchmark, but there's no benchmark in our generation yet. I'm the first, right? I'm the oldest among the cousins. So the benchmark that is existing at that time is the previous generation, my dad, my uncles, my aunt, etc., right? So that's the thing. Anyway, so 23, I'm not sure, do you think that is too early or too late, getting married at 23? I did not get married at 23, but that's my expectation. So when I was at 24, it's already like, okay, this is quite late already. But I, of course, there's this separate discussion in terms of how ready I was psychologically, right? So we'll keep that for another discussion later, perhaps, inshallah. Right. Yeah. So that's my story. I got married at 25. I still remember before that, even 1 year or 2 years before 25, I can already sense that, for example, my mom is already not to say too worried, but already starting to initiate. If I don't have anyone, she can suggest, her friend's daughter or something like that, right? So that's what happened basically. Yeah, because that's the age where we expected to get married, right? Anyway, so I'm not sure. What about you? When did you get married? Okay, that's not a question that we should ask for people to comment about, right? But what is the age range that you think it is early, on time, or late, right? Okay, so even though okay, some people will ask, is it that important to get married at a certain age? Why do you need to worry about that? Right, when the time comes, the time comes. When you find somebody, you find somebody. Of course, that the next question, who, right? But we are not discussing that yet. We're discussing on when, right? So, is it important to have a target? When do I need to get married or not? That's one question that is quite interesting, if we want to discuss. Now, for myself, from my age when I was in the university, right, doing my bachelor degree, I was privileged. I was lucky enough to have a sheikh, that all that have a lot of interaction with us. They have programs with us, and then when we eat in the dulang, the talam, I'm not sure how to translate, at the big plate, right? When a big plate where you eat like 5 people in that plate. I'm not sure what's the term in English, but hopefully you can imagine that. We always ask the sheikh. Sheikh means someone who is the elder, right? Older than us, one generation up. So the elder, perhaps, so, right? For wisdom, right? So from him, I have several things that I have in mind that affect my target in terms of when, right? When do I need to get married, and hence my target is there. So the issue is this, right? Because if we look on marriage, in terms of, it's just you being made partner with another human being, and you become life partner and go through life together, then I think the issue of when is not that important, because when you meet that one someone, then you meet that someone. Before that, there's no one, right? But I think from him, from the sheikh, some things that I learned from his own experience that lead me to think, okay, I have to set this is like the age where I should be already married. Why? Okay, one is about kids, about having children, right? Now, this is another context that I think, in our culture, I'm not sure even in our, is it previous culture, in our norm or culture, how do I put it? Because I wanted to say in our culture in Malaysia, in the Malay context, but then I think nowadays not all Malays like this, so I have to put like a disclaimer there, like, so in the context of the culture of Malay people that I'm in, right, the bubble that I live in, people normally have like 5, 6, 7 children in average, right? At school, of course, when we see kids that have, there's only one, that's you only one in your, meaning that normally that's the reaction, right? Or that's how, only one. For those who have the siblings 2 or 3, I still think that, wow, so little, right? Is it fun if you have only 3 people in the household, 3 kids playing together, right? It should be more, right? No, I'm talking about, I'm not talking this as a fact or as an argument. It's just relaying how I feel and see it, right? 5, 6, 7 is average. Some of my friends have 9, 13, 12 siblings, right? So in average I would say 5, 6 is the average. 7 It's like normally people are capping at that, okay, 7 enough, right? But that's how I am brought up with my in my family, my own family. I have 7 siblings, including me. And yeah, why I'm bringing in that up is because if that is the normal expectation, if you're planning for 6 kids, 7 kids, um, it might not work out that well if you get married quite late, 30 plus, 35, if you want to get 7, right? Especially if you want to plan also, right? It's not too close to each other. Of course, my friends who have 9 siblings, 13 siblings, that 12 siblings, when I see it's quite close to each other, because I don't know, they are so productive perhaps, right? But I think normally we would like to have like at least a gap year, so that you can manage the kids more. Some people can manage every year, one more kids. I personally don't think I can do that. It's easy for me to say anyway, because the wife is taking maximum or most of the weight of the burden, right? So it's hard for her, I think. But anyway, what's the point here? The point here is, if you're targeting of 6 kids, 7 kids, and you want them not to be too close to each other in terms of year of being born, then I think 25, 26 years of age is a good age to get married, I think, right? So what do you think? But of course, for those who don't have a lot of kids as a target of life, they don't imagine to have family in that number, then perhaps this point is not valid for them, I think, right, in this particular point. But that is one point, right? If you are considering kids in terms of 5, 6, 7 at least, or in average maybe more, then normally before 30 you would imagine already being married, right? That's one logical argument there. Second, of course, right now I already have 6 kids, 6 children. It is interesting, right? Because I'm, in terms of age, there's still more time to get more, if you know what meaning. Before, I think normally they say it's best if the mother or the wife is before 40 to give birth to, right? So we'll have several years more to get at least one more, in terms of that, if we want. I'm not saying we will want one more, because taking care of 6 is already a challenge in many aspects, and hopefully we'll talk about that later. Alright, so that's one thing. Another thing is, when we're eating with this chef, and he released something that we never have thought about it before. Especially I have never thought about it before, right? When we talk about marriage, normally we'll just think about the wife, right? And we will live happily ever after, that 2%, right? We don't imagine the kids, right? That's why for single person, especially when I'm single, and I think many guys are like that, right? When we talk about marriage, we talk about the beautiful moment with the wife. We don't, and hence guys normally when they talk about marriage, it tend to be in the positive light, and in term of you can say shahwah direction, right? They don't think, oh my god, how the kids, what about the kids, what's about the children, how to take care of them, how to finance them, etc. Normally we don't think about that before married. Only after married that start to come, and then you realize you are not well prepared for that. But anyway, the second thing that I realized from the hikmah shared with us is, if you target something, if you have certain objective or idealism of what the kids should be like growing up, for example, if you have your life mission, and you imagine, you wish, you hope that the children will be part of that mission also, will be together with you, and will be taking it ahead after you have gone from this earth. Then there's the time, or how to say, you would perhaps prefer it when they get to their teenage, oh, what I'm saying, when they get to the age of 18, 19, 20, 21. You might want to be still at the age that is quite relatable to them, right? Not like you are already 50 plus, 60 plus, perhaps, right? So some of them, not everyone have this, I think, part of life, how to say, this mission of life, perhaps, right? But I do have, I wish the family will have certain mission to achieve in this life. I wish the kids will be part and parcel of that movement to together with me, etc., etc., etc. And hence that aspect becomes a significant thing to think about, right? Then I hope when my at least first two, right? Because we have six, right? When they are at the age of 18, 19, 20, at the critical age where they are choosing a path of life, choosing identity for their life, etc. I wish I'm at the age of still active in my activism, can share with him or her, can go along the route, the path, the life of that mission, and hopefully can share with him. So those are among the things that make it realize that, okay, in that case, because if I get married at 30, when he's 20, I'm already 50, right? I wish it is before that, and hence it must be 25, 26, or 23, even better, right? If I got married in 23, which is the earlier target, when I'm 24, for example, first kid, and then when he's 20, I'm 44, right? Which is quite still young, and that's a relatable age, perhaps, right? Still know what's even actually even now it's hard to cope and keep track of the changes with the generation after us, right? Even the social media that we use is different than them. uh, Even not my kid, right? Even the school children right now, how to say, meaning the okay, those who just finished high school right now, when some of us talk about with them and want to exchange Facebook, want to become friends in Facebook, they don't even know Facebook, they only know Instagram. Of course, from business perspective, that's the same company right now, right? That's owned by the same people, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about to be able to relate with that generation, right? It's different. I don't have an Instagram account, right? So I don't know what's going on there. And now it's even more, what else, the kids are in what, TikTok or whatever else. So even not to my kid, it's already hard to grasp what is the world, their world, the world that they live in, right? What else when my kid is 20, right? So if I'm already beyond, if I'm too far behind, not too far behind, too far in terms of age, I cannot even grasp the reality. That's more challenging, I think, right? So so the idea is basically the earlier the better, in the sense of you reduce that gap in terms of being able to appreciate their world, and for them to still be able to relate to us in terms of what we do, they can straight away share it, etc., etc., right? So those are among the things that maybe, if you are not yet married, if you are in your teenage age, planning ahead, if that makes sense, if that is part of your life, because not everyone have any specific thing they want to achieve in their life, and hence the family will be affected by that. But for those who do have such thing, ponder upon this, right? If this is for you, you can ponder, oh, okay, in that case, because if you have a certain target of when, then there's something else will come into the picture, right? If you are targeting at 23, right, then you should be able to prepare ahead of time, so that at the age of 23 you are able to actually get married, because there are actually other things that come into the picture. It's just not you and her, right? It's the financial part. This goes back to the culture aspect actually, but we cannot run away from the cultural aspect and the expectation, right? For example, there's the financial aspect. You have the walimah, the ceremony, is it the function, the the catering, the food, etc., right? There's financial aspect that goes to it. Some of us are lucky that we have parents that have the financial capacity and do not mind at all to just sponsor you, right? But not everyone of us have that, and we actually have to prepare to finance the process, right? So and there are also other stuff as well that needs to be considered, right? So basically, on the first question of when, so I've shared with you what are among the factors that affect my target, my personal target. Even though I'm late 2 years from the original target, it's still quite early compared to other of my friend, right? So hopefully it does help into what I've just said, right? Because eventually when my kid grows up and I do not even actually do what I just said, right? Share with him what I do, what my activism is, why I do it. Let's go together and let's discuss, is this for you, etc., etc., etc. If I don't do that, and then eventually it's just talk, right? It's then eventually, wait, what's the purpose of you getting married early then? Early means, because I think in nowadays also in Malay culture, 25 people do not consider it early anymore. No, sorry, 25 is not, 25 for some is still is actually considered early, right? Okay, I hope that makes sense. Anyway, so that's the question of when. Now we'll go to the next question of who, right? Who meaning, okay, who should I get married to, right? Because for some, this is the question, right? It's not when. It's because if I ask, do you want to get married? Yes, but I don't have anyone to get married to, right? So what's the point of asking when, right? So hence this question is actually quite important, or can be argued is more important than when, right? Even if you get married, going back to my argument there, or my reasoning there, right? If I get married at a certain age, which is quite relatively early for the sake of the kids, but the wife that I get married to do not believe in such mission, such worldview, then what, right? It will not go to what I hope I will be able to do, I will be able to do with my kids when they are reaching 20, right? So in a lot of sense, the who question is more important in my personal opinion, right? Meaning that if you get married at 23 or 25 with the wrong candidate, compared to getting married at 30, which is quite late, but to the right candidate, maybe the second option is the best, because it provides with more potential in reaching what you want to do later in life or throughout the life, especially also to the kids, right? Now again, I'm not sure if you notice, but a lot of reasoning that I have, it is actually goes back to the foundation of what is your life mission, what you want to achieve in life, what you want your kids to follow your footstep. What footstep is that? What actually is the path that we want to have for you and your kids and your wife, etc., 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 right? So I think this is a fundamental question which is not fit to be discussed here. So we will hopefully talk about it in another video, another recording, because I think that actually shape your worldview, your planning, your decision making in a lot of things, including marriage, including where to live, including job opportunity and which career path, etc., etc., etc. Right? So marriage is going to be affected by that fundamental question, and inshallah this will be the topic of discussion in a later video. Going back for this discussion here, all right. So of course, the mother is a huge factor for the kids, and hence your wife, the candidate for your wife becomes a huge factor if you have a certain target and objective for your kids, for your future kids, right? Yeah, so now on the question of who, right? So meaning that when I say who, it's not the name of the person, right? Because based on that reasoning, it's more on the character, on the worldview, on the personal mission, on the perspective on marriage that the candidate, the potential wife have. And on this topic, right, I've heard, okay, how to talk about this. I still remember one sharing by a certain ustaz back then when I was still in my university bachelor degree age. He said something that he heard or was said by one student, one guy, one student, I don't know, is it a student or something, but he complained because the ustaz says we should find wanita solihah, that's in Malay, right? In basically a good girl, a good woman, a pious woman, right? A mu'minah, for example, as your wife, for the sake of your family, future family, right? And the response from that guy was something that stuck in my memory, right? He says, where can we find such a good woman, Ustaz? Such a good girl doesn't exist, because the word is like this. Kalau perempuan sekarang ni, kalau dapat yang dara pun susah, apatah lagi the dot, right? If I translate that, right, girls nowadays, to find even a virgin is difficult. What else if you want to put characteristic like this, right? When I listen to that, when I heard that, it's kind of a shocker to me, right? What is this guy talking about, right? Because such thing is alien from my bubble, right? I live in a bubble. Okay, this is another topic for another day, right? My upbringing really is some form of a bubble. I just to share a little bit on how I see the world when I grew up, right? I live in a bubble in such a way that I thought what I look on TV, where there are Muslim that do not wearing hijab, for example, or there are Muslim that goes to nightclub in TV, because there are a lot of TV drama have that kind of scene. I thought that was just made up for drama. I never thought that a Muslim can actually go to a nightclub. Only when I was 20 plus, after I gone to university, etc., I do realize that, wait a minute, there are Muslim actually doing that stuff. What is going on, right? Because I live in a bubble in such a way that I never could have imagined. Okay, one other story. In Form 3, this is around 15 years of age, I think. We went to Japan. I follow my parent. My dad have some job there. We lived there for 3 months, I think. So during that time, we did me and my younger sisters actually got into their school, the primary school in Japanese school system, right? So Of course, I was already in the secondary school, right, and Form 3 in the Malaysian system. But because we don't have any knowledge of their language, we cannot go to the highest school, so we'll just go to the primary school where they play most of the time. But anyway, what to relate to what I was just talking, right? We actually have a show and tell to do, right? So we just draw something about our country and show and tell. And quite interesting, in that dialogue, many of the kids, the Japanese kids, asked about my sisters, younger sisters, wearing hijab, right? What's that all about? And basically we answer that in as a Muslim, we have to cover ourselves like this. Is the dress code, right? And they say, isn't it difficult always like that? And I say, oh, no. Actually, at home we don't need to dress like this, right? Meaning, only when my sister go out of home, she need to cover her hair, her body, etc., right? Meaning the limit of how much you have to cover at home and outside is different, right? So the headscarf is not compulsory at home when you are with your siblings and your parents, etc., right? And then they say, oh, and then we also add, when you get married, so you towards your husband, you don't need to wear this, right? And I still remember when we talk about that. Okay, so the beauty of the girl can only be seen by the husband. And this is young primary school kids, Japanese kids, right? They say, oh, it's not like that, like, oh, like in awe, that they say, oh, so romantic, right? That's the first time we ever got such response, because personally I have never been engaging with non-Muslim before in my life, right? That never know about Islam, and we didn't see it that way ourselves until the kids actually responded like that, right? Oh, so romantic. I was like, oh, is it romantic? Interesting, right? We never see it that way. And there's a follow-up question, and when because the teacher is the translator for us, because we are talking in English, the Japanese kids talking in Japanese, and the teacher, who can speak both English and Japanese, of course, translating, right, back and forth. And suddenly there's one kid asks, right, after they say, oh, so romantic, this dress code, and that kid asks, so, meaning he asked something, but the teacher hesitant to ask us. Sorry, the teacher is quite hesitant to relay that question to us, and finally she said, this is quite sensitive what he asked, but can we ask? We don't know what is the question. Of course, ask away. She said, so is there any divorce case in your country? Because your dress code, your philosophy is so romantic. They expect no divorce will be happening in marriage. That's quite an interesting perspective, right? And we look at each other, because we know at that time, at that age, we know that for a fact there are marriage that goes through divorce among Muslim, right? In fact, there's a lot of marriage goes to divorce. So we didn't know what to answer that time, because the kids are in expectation that, oh, you guys are so romantic, it's special for the husband and husband for wife, so it must be so, meaning marriage must be something so special that no divorce. Perhaps that's why there's expectation. So when we say, yeah, there's actually some divorce happening, etc., so the kids got like the world that they think, oh, this is so great, suddenly crash, right? Yeah. So why did I suddenly think of these memories? What was the original discussion on marriage just now? You and your wife, I think, right? How does it relate to that? I don't remember. This is my weakness. When I talk about something, I thought about something else, and then I forgot, wait, how is this connected, right? um anyway, going back to who is your candidate, right? So yeah, it relates to the story that that guy was saying that there's no good girl around anymore, right? And I did not, what I mentioned, because I live in a bubble where I thought every Muslim girl is a good girl, right? And yeah, but however, after, even before I was married, and after I married, even more so, we always face the problem that there are so many good girls that cannot find good guys, not enough of stock of good pious Muslim guy, right? And this is like almost a universal case already. I mean, when I say universal, I'm not saying all over the world, but I'm saying in every state that I go, etc. It's always that the group of Muslimah that are serious about their life mission as a Muslimah far outnumber the guys that have the same philosophy, right? And so how is this disconnect, right? When there's a guy complaining that there's no possible, no good girl candidate for him, when on the other side I said we are struggling to find good guy candidate, good male candidate, right? So what is happening here? That is an interesting question, right? My personal hypothesis is that it depends on the pool that you live in, which affect your perspective and your worldview of your world, right? If you live in a pond where there's only frog there and there's only just few fish, you will think that there are much more frog in this world than the fish, I think, compared to the next pond where inside there's only fish and no frog. You see, you don't even know that there's frog in this world, perhaps, because as a fish down inside there, you never see a frog. I don't know. I'm not sure if this analogy is valid or not, but I do think that whether there's a candidate or not, for example, it depends on the pool that you live in, because you do not know all the people in this world. You only know the people in your bubble, right, in your environment, and you generalize it without realizing it. You generalize the world with that bubble, and the candidate tend to be from that bubble also, right? And of course, this is before we have a platform where you can get to know someone from outside of the bubble that you never know existed before, from online platform, from people that work as a broker for marriage, finding someone and someone, match them together, etc., right? Yeah. So anyway, going to back to the question, the who question is very, very important, I would say. And there's a specific discussion on this, I think. Okay, let's just go to the fundamental one. If you have a personal mission in your life, and your life, you do imagine that marriage is integral part of your own life, if that two premises is, you take those two premises, obviously the candidate for your wife becomes so important in your life. Because if you want to achieve your personal mission in life, and then you think that marriage is part of your life, if your wife do not agree with your personal mission, then you will have friction throughout your life. It will be either the marriage is separately totally different than your personal mission life. That would not be fun, I think. So the candidate that have the same mission, that would be making the journey is more interesting, right? So that's number one. So of course it boils down to the issue of how is marriage in your life, meaning what is the concept of marriage that how to say how how I think this goes without saying. For Muslim, marriage is obviously integral part of your life. For Malay, for our culture, of course, marriage is important in your life. But I remember talking about a friend of a friend who is from some country in Europe. He does see that in his back there, the youngsters are no longer interested in marriage as perhaps the previous generation, right? Because nowadays, why marriage is just a piece of paper, right? Why do you need marriage? You have girlfriend, you just live as it is, because it has, for some place, marriage and girlfriend boyfriend relationship has become just the same thing, except one have paper, one don't have paper, right? But for people of religious background, I think most religion put marriage in a sacred place, right? It's not just a normal relationship, it's a sacred relationship where you have to put in your commitment, etc, etc, etc. I think this isn't for the concept of marriage itself. I think we will reserve this for a discussion on its own, right? So there's a lot of discussion that we can have. I need to jot this down because I tend to forget, right? So we'll talk about marriage, we'll talk about other different stuff. Anyway, back to the discussion at hand. So if you have those things, if you believe that, okay, just to throw in one, of course, personal experience also. One of my friend, let's call it a friend, right? One of the person that I mentor, right? Um, he basically have a target in life, which means that his let me see this for a second. Okay, his target in life, or his career path in life, or no, his personal goal, his personal mission in life does involve being public figure, being in the political sphere, right? And he got married to someone, or in the process of getting married, he's quite upfront with it. He says, okay, this is the possibility of my life in the future. I want to go into this line of work, this line of personal mission, which may involve me being in the public sphere. People will see me, my activity, etc. People will be around me. This is the risk level, blah 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 blah. Are you ready to live with that reality? Not point blank question to the candidate, soon to be wife, if she agreed. She was quite shocked because she was not preparing for such a question, right? Are you ready to live where your husband is out most of the time, right? If you see politician, they go out of most of the time, for example, right? So I think these are important questions to be discussed before getting married, because if you just say, oh, she's lovely, he's lovely, let's be together, sometimes you are skipping the important question that actually implicates how strained the relationship will be in the future, right? So that's another thing that will that's among the factors that I think we should think really think deeply about before getting married, on the who question, right? So personally, I have a target that I want a wife to have this character, this criteria, etc., because this is the criteria needed for her to be able to appreciate what I want to achieve in this life, and I want her to be on my side on this long-lasting, long life. What is the word? Lifelong journey of mission together. So she should be already invested and fully dedicated to the mission before marriage, right? So that we know we have the same mission. Inshallah, we will have the same mission until the end of time, or end of our time in this life. So yeah, that put us in a better shape from the beginning, rather than you have this crisis of not seeing the world in the same way, right? That create tension. And my opinion, of course, I only have one marriage so far. I don't have multiple marriage, so I can only say from my own perspective. Maybe someone who have a different history in life can share the other side. What if you get into marriage where the the life mission is totally different, right? How do you handle? So someone else have to share about that. I don't know. I like it to be more easy. I always choose the easier path, which is we have the same mission, let's go together, right? So there and also there are criteria for what is suitable to raise my kids, etc., 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 right? So that's the who question. So we have covered when, or in Malay we say soalnya bila, right? So the question is when, and then soalnya siapa, the question is who, right? And then the third question is how. If I have, okay, if you're already 20 or 19, 18, thinking about marriage in the future, okay, I have, based on those things, I'm targeting 23 to get married, and I am targeting this criteria as my wife, etc., right? Then how, right? The question of how comes into the picture. Alright, so according to the time, I will have to cut short this discussion. I'm not sure how long have this been. It's already 51 minutes. Interesting, this is the longest time so far on this video podcast that I have done. This is reaching already almost an hour. What else? Okay, so the next question is how. So if I have this target of age range that I want to get married, I have target of this criteria of a lady that I want to get married to. So how should I go about? And that is the two questions, hopefully in another video, another podcast. So we have marriage concept, we have how to get married in the time, and with this set criteria. We have some other topics that we will be discussing later, hopefully, inshallah. If you are interested in those kind of discussion, do let me know. Do share your thoughts. If someone actually listen to while I'm talking live like this, you can actually comment, and we can straight away question and answer perhaps. I don't think that will happen anytime soon because no one is actually watching me. Hopefully after 1 year of doing this, someone will be actually watching, and hopefully it will be more interesting when we can get straight feedback which affect what I will be saying next, right? Anyway, inshallah, that's about it. I think that's my thought. This has been a Muslim perspective. This is just one Muslim. I'm not talking as a, how to say, I'm not talking on behalf of all Muslim. I'm not saying this is the perspective of Islam itself. This is the perspective of a Muslim who try my best to become a practicing Muslim, inshallah. On the question of marriage, on the topic of marriage, the question of when, the question of who, and on the question of how, we have to take that for a different discussion, because when I started this one, I imagined that it will be around 1 hour of a talk, a discussion. I know most Malay do not like to watch that long, especially when it's from someone who don't even know and what is authority that I have, right? But anyway, that's beside the point. We'll just share the content. Hopefully it's beneficial to someone in this world. And yeah, this has been a Muslim perspective. Hopefully it has been beneficial. Do say and share what is your background and what's your perspective on this matter. Is it that important, the question of when? Is it that important, the question of who? And anyone who want to ask about how, any question, any interesting question on that, if you post that, and I read it before I'm doing the live session on that question, it will be interesting to get question from outside, because otherwise it's just from my perspective and it might not be relatable to some of you. Wallahu alam, even if someone is actually watching right now. Alright, so I think this is already 55 minutes. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. I never thought I would be talking that long. I think from the start, the first few videos is like 10 minutes and then almost 20. This is almost an hour. Interesting stuff. Interesting for me. I'm not saying what I have said throughout this hour is interesting. I don't know. Do tell, is it interesting or not? But it is interesting that I am able to talk this long. Hopefully it's beneficial. I will just close with this. I remember one of my lecturer when I was doing my bachelor degree. He's quite animated. Is that the right expression? One example, because this is just to relate, right? He says some people, they goreng. Okay, goreng is an expression from Malay, right? They cook. It's not the same. You cannot translate that way. But it's like this. In Malay, I relate in Malay first. Ada orang ni, dia punya mi tu mangkuk kecil je, tapi dia punya goreng tu macam satu kuali. I'm not sure if you're Malay, if you can understand that one. I've translated in English, right? So there are some people, the noodle that they have is just one bowl, one small bowl, right? That's the noodle. But the way they cook it, it's like on a big frying pan, it's like full of noodle, right? The way they cook, meaning some people cook up things as if they have a lot of material, but if you look at the inside, the material is just a tiny bit, but the way they cook as if they have a lot of material. Hopefully, because I think I'm still like that, right? Even if I have been talking about 57 minutes right now, maybe the material that I give out is just like 5 minutes worth, I don't know. So hopefully I do not waste so much time of anyone. Hopefully when I talk in the future, for 1 hour, the content, the benefit is 1 hour. Hopefully, inshallah, that's where I want to be in the future. And hopefully this is the process for me to develop myself towards that, inshallah. Wallahu alam. So this has been a Muslim perspective on marriage. I think we will stop now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Hope you have enjoyed and also have some benefits. Do provide any comment for anything, improvement or questions, and we'll see you in the next one, inshallah. Wallahu alam. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and have a good day, good week, good year, inshallah, and a productive one. Wallahu alam. Okay, I think, can we stop this one already? Yeah, I still do not know, because there's a lag between the computer and the online, so I'm not sure if I stop now it will be truncated suddenly. I think we can stop now. Okay, thank you for watching. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.